So we have officially finished Units 1 and Units 2, so we are now in Unit 3, which is all about slope and graphing lines. Most of this unit is a review of what you've done in middle school, but it is very, very, very important for Algebra 1. So we're going to spend some time to make sure that you really know how to do each of the concepts here in Unit 2. So the first concept we need to know is called slope. You have done slope since the 6th grade. It is not that difficult. What we need to know is that slope means rate of change. So whenever you see the word slope, it is the same as the word rate of change. The slope is the steepness of the graph. So if this is a line, the slope determines how steep this line is. So in the first one, we have a positive slope. This slope is positive because it goes up from left to right. So in the English language, we always read from the left side to the right side. So this goes up when we read it from left to right. Easy. If this was a roller coaster, we start on the left side. We always read starting from the left. This roller coaster is going up the hill in a positive direction. So the number for my slope would be a positive number. In the next example, this is a negative slope. It means when we read it from the left side to the right side, it's dropping down in a negative direction. So this is a negative slope. A negative slope goes down from left to right. So if we were to read it like we read a book, the left side to the right side, this is dropping down. That's a negative slope. A zero slope looks like the top of a Z. So if it looks like the top of a Z, then its slope is 0. It's like you flatlined, you zeroed. This is a zero slope. The top of a Z would be a line that has a slope of 0. And then the last one, undefined, drops straight down under. It looks like the side of a U. U is for undefined. So an undefined slope looks like the side of a U. Very easy. So those are the 4 types of slope. Positive means it goes up. Negative means it drops down. 0 looks like the top of a Z. Undefined looks like the side of a U. All very easy. Those are my 4 types of slope. So now that we know what the slopes look like, we are going to graph them. So we're going to graph a slope from a point. So it says step 1, let's label positive or negative on my graph. So if I look at this graph, positive slopes would go upward, negative slopes will drop downward. It says start from the leftmost point. Here is my only point. And then it says rise over run. You've heard that before, I'm sure. Rise over run. And we're going to graph at least 3 points. When graphing slope, it must be a fraction. So 2 is the same as 2 over 1. So if it's a whole number, you put a 1 below it because 2 divided by 1 is just the number 2. So if we look at example 1, that's a whole number, so I put a 1 below it. So now I have a number that I can rise. It's positive. The 1 is also positive, so I'm going to go up 2 and to the right 1. So from my ordered pair, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. Easy. Rise 2, run 1. Graph my line. And number 2, this is a negative number. Negative slopes drop down. So we're going to go down 1, and then we always go to the right. So from my dot, I'm going to go down 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4. Down 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Connect your dots. We have 3 points on our graph, so there's enough dots to create a nice straight line. Very easy. Number 3, the slope is 0. We said the word 0 starts with a Z. So a slope of 0 looks like the top of a Z. You flatlined, you're at a 0. 0 slope does not rise any. It rises 0. So this is like the top of a Z. Number 4, M. M is the slope. The slope is undefined. An undefined slope, we said, looks like the side of a U, or it drops straight down under. M is undefined. So we use the letter M for slope. The real reason is because the French word for slope starts with an M, but we like to say that slope, the M stands for moves. The slope is how I am moving from one point to the next point. So we always use the letter M when we're talking about the slope or the steepness of our line. Very easy. So let's do the same thing on the next page. So this time, instead of graphing the slope, we're going to write what the slope is. Let's do it like this. Okay, so finding the slope from a graph. So it says find 2 perfect points. A perfect point is a point that hits right in the corner of the box. They gave us 2, how nice. So I'm always going to start with the left point to be consistent for myself. We're going to count how many it goes up or down. That's my rise number. And then we're going to count how many it goes to the right. Then we write our answer as a fraction, the rise number, over the run number. So if I look at this, I'm going up 1 and to the right 2 boxes. Rise 1, run 2. So my slope, my M, is a 1/2. This is a positive line. It goes up, so my slope is a positive slope. Let's look at number 2. Here is a perfect point. Here is a perfect point. To get there, we take the elevator first. We're dropping down 2. And then we go to the right 2. Down 2, right 2. We need to simplify this fraction. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So my slope is -1. We use a fraction to graph it, but we simplify it when we're just writing the slope. -2 divided by 2 is a -1. This slope is negative. It's dropping down the graph, so I know for sure that this has to be a negative. Number 3, you can try 3 and 4 on your own. I start with the left point, I rise, and then I run. Same with number 4, I drop down elevator number first, and then I run to the right. Okay, so try numbers 3 and number 4. We can check it together. Number 3 goes up 1 and to the right 2. So it rises 1 and it runs 2. This graph is positive. It goes up the hill, so it is a positive slope. M equals 1/2. Number 4, it drops down the elevator. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going down 5. And it goes to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. So my elevator number, the number that goes up or down, it dropped 5, and it went to the right 4. This slope is a negative number because this line is dropping in a negative direction. So number 4 is a negative slope. So go ahead and try the exact same things for numbers 5 and number 6. So easy. 5 and 6 are even easier. 5 looks like the top of a Z. So 5 is going to be 0, or you can write that as the number 0. It's a 0 slope. Number 6 looks like the side of a U. So that's called undefined. It has an undefined slope. We'll explain why in just a minute. The answer is undefined. Very, very easy. So now that we have graphed slopes and we've written the slope from a graph, we are now going to write the slope from 2 points. So we've graphed it, we've looked at the rise over the run. we have figured out what the slope is from a graph. So now we are going to figure out what the slope is. So in the first example, we're going to graph it just so we can see what would happen if we had graph paper. So in number 1, it says this slope, we need to find the slope when we have 2 ordered pairs. The first ordered pair is 2, 3. And put that right there. The next ordered pair is 6, 5. To find the slope, so this would be a line, it's fine. So to find the slope that connects these points, we count how many it rises, and then we count how many it runs. So in this one, it rises 2, and it runs 1, 2, 3, 4. So my slope is how many it rises over how many it runs. So if we think about our axis, our y number, our y-axis, is the rise number. So that's how many the y's change. And then the run, the left-right axis, is my x-axis. So to get 2, I could have taken this original y value and subtracted this y value here. So if I subtracted these y values, it would give me the number 2. So my slope formula is the change of the y's. That's the rise number. If I took my y value from up here and I subtracted the y value from right here, it would give me the number 2. So it's the change in y's over the change in x's. If I took this x number and subtracted this x number, I'd get 4. So it's the change in my x's, the difference of my x's. Slope is rise over run. So this here is the most important formula in this chapter. This is how we calculate the slope of a line. So from the graph, this slope is 2 over 4, which reduces to a 1/2. So now let's use our slope formula to see if that was correct. Up 2 over 4, which is the same as 1 over 2. So what we do is this is my x, this is my y. This is my x, this is my y. These came first, these came second. So the formula says take your y2. My y2 is a 5. Minus my y1. My y1 is a 3. Take x2. x2 is 6. Minus x1. x1 is 2. Simplify. 5 minus 3 is 2. Over 6 minus 2 is 4. Oh, would you look at that? This is the same slope as what we got if we had graphed it. Again, 2/4 can reduce. 2/4 is the same as a 1/2. 2/4 is not wrong. This here is the slope. It's going up 2 and over 4. But to be most correct, we would simplify any fraction we could. 2/4 reduces to 1/2. So now without the graph, we're going to try the same thing to find this slope. So what we do is we label x1, y1. This is an x, this is a y. These numbers came second. So start with y2, that's a -9. Minus y1 is 8. Over x2 minus x1. If you struggle with negatives, you can type this in the calculator with the button Control and then the divide button, and you can type this whole thing in and you would get the slope. But for today, we're just going to practice doing it in our head. So if we have -9 and another 8 negatives, -9 and -8 is the number -17. 10 minus 6 is the number 4. 17 over 4 does not reduce. So my answer is that my y values would drop down 17 boxes, and then it would run 4 boxes. So it's -17 over 4. So try the same thing with number 3. So number 3, very easy. -5 minus 8. So that's my y2. And I subtracted my y1. My x2 subtracts my x1. So my x2 is a 2. I am subtracting. Be careful. x1 is a -1. This is a minus that came from the equation, and the x1 is the number -1. -5 minus 8 is -13. Minus a negative turns into a plus sign. 2 plus 1 is 3. So my slope would drop down 13 and go to the right 3. Down 13 over 3. So in number 4, same thing. Let's do it together. X, Y, X, Y. These come first, these come second. My y2 is a -1. My y1 is a 9. It's the change in y's. It's my rise number over the change in x's. 5 minus 5. -1 minus 9 is the number -10. 5 minus 5 is 0. If you typed this in the calculator, -10 divided by 0, your calculator would say error. It said it will not work. There is not a number. If I have a 0 below, I cannot divide by 0. It doesn't work in the world of math. So if you have a 0 underneath, the slope is undefined. So the answer for this one, my 0 was underneath. So this slope is undefined. It would drop down 10. But it would not run any. So it would look like this. It just drops down. It's an undefined slope. It looks like the side of a U. So it says, by the way, B2W, if you have a 0 below or the calculator says error, it means the slope is undefined. Wouldn't work. So let's try number 3. Last one, and then I'll let you do the last few by yourself. X1, Y1, X2, y2. Change in y's, it's a -3 minus y1 minus, and then -3. 0 minus 2. Minus a negative is the same as a plus sign. -3 plus 3 is 0 over 0 minus 2 is -2. If you type that in the calculator, 0 divided by -2 is good. The slope is 0. That one works. The 0 is not underneath, so it's not undefined. The 0 is on top, we're good. 0 divided by -2 is the number 0. So try the same thing with numbers 6, 7, and 8. Use your slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, so we are in our last page of today. I'm going to show you some in each way, whichever one you'd prefer is fine with me. So the last thing we're doing is we are finding the slope from a table. When you find the slope from a table, you have two options. Whichever you feel more comfortable in is the option that's fine. I'm totally fine with you doing. So in this first one, number 1, it says, you can find the change in y. Remember, slope is the change in y over the change of x. This little delta is like a math science phrase that just means the change. How much did the y's change over how much did the x's change? So if I look at my table, I'm just going to pick 2 points. That's a point. That's a point. My change in y is from a 10 to a 20. It went up 10. Over my change in x's, 0 to a 2, it went up 2. You could keep looking at the other changes, but from slope, you only need 2 points. That's a point. That's a point. So I can find the change of y over the change of x. 10 divided by 2, because if the change in y goes first, 10 over the change of x. 10 divided by 2 is the number 5. We'll do another one just like that. The change in y. To get from 20 to 18, it drops 2 over the change of x. To get from a 12 to a 14, it increases 2. So it's the change in y over the change in x. We reduce negative 2 divided by 2 is the number negative 1. Okay, so that's the option 1. That's the first way that you can find the slope. If you struggle in knowing what the change is, option 2 says that we can pull off 2 points. So if I look at number 3, I'm going to pull off the point 3, comma, negative 10. I'm going to pull off the point 6, comma, 5. So we could also use what we did on the last page. Find your x1, y1, x2, y2. The change in y, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. 15 over 3. 15 divided by 3 is the number 5. Okay, so you can either find the change in y. So if I looked at number 6, for example, this change in y is that it's dropping 1. The change in x is from a negative 6 to a negative 2. It increased 4. If you struggle with negatives, I suggest you pull off your 2 points, you plug them into your slope formula, and you get your answer that way. But in number 6, I have my change in y, which is a negative 1, over my change in x, which is a positive 4. Change in y over the change in x. So go ahead and try number 4 and try number 5. Remember, if the 0 is underneath, it's called undefined. The slope is undefined. If the 0 is underneath, it is undefined. Okay? So today you learned positive, negative, 0, and undefined slopes. You learned how to graph them. You learned how to calculate them from 2 points. And you learned how to calculate them from a table. Very important. So this is the whole lesson for today. Slope, which is the same as the word rate of change.